going, everyone? Golden ticket to history. What would you say if I told you that there were vampires in Florida? What would you think? Would you believe me? Would you think that I'm one of those who flew out of the cuckoo's nest? Well, they weren't actually vampires per se, but they believed themselves to be. On November 25th, 1996, a vampire clan, a group of high school students, decided to take part in an unspeakable act. It ultimately ended up with the deaths of 2 innocent bystanders. What happened was there was a young high school student by the name of Rod Ferrell who believed himself to be a 500-year-old vampire by the name of Vesago. And he had a group of friends who also believed the same thing. They believed that they could eventually become eternal. And they decided that they were done with school. They decided they were done with where they lived, living in a small town. They decided they wanted to pack up everything and leave, go somewhere else. They decided they wanted to go to Baton Rouge. They wanted to go to Louisiana. So what ended up happening was they hatched a plan. They decided they were going to go to one of the houses of one of the members of the clan and go into the house, steal money, jewelry, and a car to get them to Louisiana. Unfortunately, during this burglary, things started to turn for the worst. At the house of one of the clan members by the name of Heather, there was Rob and Scott, 2 of the members of the clan, who decided to go into the house. They unfortunately, during the burglary, decided to have an epiphany, an aha moment, a rush, a thrill, decided to take the lives of Rick and Ruth Wendorf, the mothers of one of the members of the vampire clan, Heather. And in a moment I'm going to show you the house where this unfortunately took place 25 years ago this coming November.
Everyone in their life, except for rare exception, will come down to the point where they are faced with the opportunity to either kill or show mercy. Many of us will come to that point many times. And, I mean, it's really simple. It's either you do or you don't. It's not some big complex struggle like they would show in a movie or something. It is rather simple. It's, do I want to? Don't I want to? Do I care of the consequence or not? Some of us say no, we don't, and we perform the act.
You stated it best to Baton Rouge Sergeant Ben Odom a long time ago. You said, and I paraphrase, when I killed those people, I felt a rush. I felt like I was a god. But I guess if I was a god, I wouldn't be here today, now would I? And that's just as true today as it was in Baton Rouge in the interrogation station. The jury unanimously decided to recommend to this court that Roderrick Justin Ferrell should die for each of his crimes. The court agrees with the jury that in weighing the aggravating circumstances against the mitigating circumstances, the scales of justice tilt unquestionably on the side of death.
On that fateful night of November 25th, 1996, there was Ruth, Rick, and the couple's oldest daughter, Jennifer, in the house. What happened was that Rick was sleeping on the couch, Ruth was taking a shower, and Jennifer was watching TV in the master bedroom when the carnage began. Both Rod and Scott both went in through an unlocked door in the garage, which I'm going to show you in just a moment. They went to the house, they saw Rick sleeping on the couch, they danced frivolously around him, and then repeatedly bludgeoned him with a crowbar until his life was taken from him. They then went off to to Ruth. She tried to fight them off, made it to the kitchen and tried to get away, but unfortunately she too had her life taken. Jennifer was the only survivor from that ordeal, and around 10:35 p.m. that evening, she had to make a phone call to the police, a 911 call, very frantic, very eerie, telling them that her parents were now deceased. Then you have the chase begins. And they eventually found Heather, who was the youngest daughter, who was a member of the vampire clan, with Rod, with Scott, and an additional person, 4 members total, in Baton Rouge. So right here on Green Tree Lane is where all of this unspeakable horror occurred. If you see right in the center of the screen, you can see the garage. That's the garage that Rod and Scott went into. That's where, unfortunately, the murder weapon was found. It's normally a very quiet part of Florida. You can hear the bugs buzzing in the background, and we just heard some gunshots in the distance. Someone must be doing some target practice. But this quiet little country road 25 years ago was a site of unspeakable horror. It's hard to believe, 25 years ago. In the afternoon of November 25th, 1996, this house was completely quiet, calm, just like this. This is the afternoon in July. And I believe it's about 10 hours later, what would happen? After the murder of Ruth and Rick, Rod and Scott gathered some belongings that Heather asked for, some mementos, some souvenirs to take from the house. They looked around to see if there was anything else worth taking. They stole the parents' Ford Expedition, I believe it was, backed out of the garage. That new barn section, I believe, was not there back in 1996. They came down this driveway. I'm not sure if this gate was there or not. Made a left turn here, went down this road, and eventually would not be found again until they were caught in Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
We went to the house, we entered it, and while in the garage, I just thought offhand that if the male Windorf, Ricky or Richard, would have been awake, I might need something in protection just in case I needed to get out of there. So I searched around and I found the murder weapon, the crowbar. And branding that, while I went in, we saw that Richard was asleep and that Naomi was nowhere around, so we looked around, we decided if there was anything else we'd like to take. And of course, Heather, she had asked me to take a couple things from the house for her as souvenirs, is how she told me. So, while going back through the house, I really have no idea where the notion came from, but Scott and I just decided to kill them. So that's what we did. In a childish manner, Scott and I impishly danced around his body before he was dead. Just, strangely enough, it was a rush, a teenager's rush, to know that he was asleep and not know that we held his fate in our hands. And after we finished our foolish dance, I stood over him and began to strike his head repeatedly with a crowbar until his life was taken.
I apologize if the audio is not perfect. I did not bring any external mics with me. This was kind of an impromptu trip. I so happened to be in the area, decided to Google it and realized that it was on my way. So this is something I've been going back and forth about how I wanted to approach it. Wanting to be respectful of the family, wanting to memorialize the families, but also highlighting or sharing with you. So you always want to try to be respectful. You know, I find things, you know, especially with true crime, not necessarily, I guess somewhat interesting. You know, you don't find the acts interesting, but just the fact that these events could happen, that level of hatred or pain could be in someone's heart to cause those types of violence. And it's hard to believe that those type of people exist in our world, but they do. And so videos that I try to do with true crime isn't necessarily to glorify the person who committed these crimes, because there's no justification behind their acts, but rather to memorialize and to honor the lives of the victims, the people who unfortunately were on the back end of some sick, twisted fantasy that these individuals had. This house did lay abandoned for many years. Some people have tried to live here, but just the fact of the events that occurred have kind of deterred some people from wanting to make this their home. You know, it's understandable. It's hard to believe that anyone would potentially want to live in a house where something like that happened. Some people do. You know, I enjoy the macabre like anybody else. I enjoy the supernatural, but the fact that this understanding, this energy doesn't necessarily leave a dwelling. There's been a lot of questions about what could have driven these 4 individuals to want to take part in such a heinous act. You know, in the mid-90s, there definitely was a lot of individuals who were caught up in the whole vampire scene. You had Interview with the Vampire coming out in 1994. You had Buffy the Vampire Slayer movie coming out in 1992. You had Bram Stoker's Dracula came out. Lots and lots and lots of supernatural vampire type movies. The Craft came out around the same time. So there definitely was a huge scene of people, you know, really grasping or gravitating towards these ideas. You know, we all kind of play in fun, you know. There's times that I wish that I had powers or that I could live forever as a vampire. But as I said before, it seems that there is some new homeowners, so I'm trying to be respectful of their privacy. But I wanted to do this video to highlight and to memorialize Rick and Ruth. I'm going to try and make it out to their final resting places. It's about almost an hour from here. It's actually in Winter Park. It's actually in Winter Park, Florida. It's in a memorial park, which is where the final resting place is. So it's something I have on my agenda. I may not get into this video, or I may potentially go with this video, but it's about 45 minutes to an hour away. But anywho, okay, so as always, continue to look for the history in film. I hope you enjoyed this video. May Rick and Ruth rest in peace. This video has, the big reason behind the video is that Scott, who was one of the individuals who took part in the brutal killings, has recently had his sentence from a life sentence reduced to a 40-year sentence. He had a life sentence without parole. In the state of Florida, all life sentences have no parole. In Florida, there is no parole, so if you get a life, you get life. And so he had that reduced to a 40-year sentence, so he'll get out at the age of 51. I think he's pushing about 40 right now. Rod Ferrell had death sentences, which have been reduced to life in prison without parole. He has attempted to try to get those reduced too, but he's been unsuccessful. So yeah, so I'm gonna add a couple clips in from some of the true crime and unsolved mystery type video broadcast done on this story. Until next time, continue to look for the history in film, rate, like, subscribe. See you guys next time.